Okay, so even though there wasn't a lot of action in this week's chapter, this honestly might still be one of my top 5 of the entire arc so far, because we had so many big reveals in this chapter alone. I mean, we got the big reveal what's going on below the surface on Landard and what Ziggy's been doing with the humans on that planet this entire time. We finally stepped to fight against the big 3 OSG members that we've been waiting this entire arc to get to. And on top of that, we got the reveal of the last member of the OSG that we've yet been introduced to, Saint Fire Nox, and finding out that she actually has a huge connection to one of the big named characters of the series. So yeah, even though there wasn't a lot of action in this chapter, this is probably still one of the best setup chapters that Hero's done in a very long time. Okay, so the chapter opens up with us checking in with Connor and Moskoy just as they're finding out that both Sister and Herman are fine, and that they won their fights against Killer and Clown, which a lot of people speculated, and I did too as well, that the fight wasn't exactly over between Sister and Clown just yet. But I guess because of the fact that we're switching gears over to focusing on Connor and setting up the big fight against the big 3 OSG members here on Landard, I guess it means that the fight actually did end in the last chapter, which a lot of people were a little disappointed with the way it ended. I can understand that it wasn't the best ending to a fight, but me personally, I'm fine with the way that fight ended if it means we can finally get into the big 3 fights of this arc. Anyway, we have Connor deciding to switch things up and going into the assault phase of their plan of taking down Dead and Crow. So we have Jin, Klein, and Laguna all coming back to the ship, and if I remember correctly, basically their plan for taking him down was to use the main cannon of the Eden Zero in order to take him down with that, which I guess that means that Holly, since the 3 of them came back to the ship, Holly's gonna be the one alone, kind of like distracting Dead and Crow while they charge up the cannon in order to take him down. I personally don't see that plan actually working out just because of the fact that we knew about the plan going into the arc. So more than likely something's going to end up going wrong with their plan, like maybe the cannon, even at full power, is not strong enough to take down Dead and Crow completely, or maybe he's going to be able to block it with his own ability, I'm not sure. But more than likely what's going to end up happening is that when the cannon plan fails, it's going to be up to Holly to take down Dead and Crow by herself, and that actually makes the most sense that she actually does have the personal grudge against him. The only question is whether or not she's actually going to be able to take him down, because we, as far as we're aware, so far we haven't been shown that she can actually use her Ether Gear ability through her Night Gear. And on top of that, we don't even really have a clear definition of exactly what her Ether Gear ability is just yet. Like, I mean, we saw her use it back at that, like, poolside resort they were at, but we didn't get a clear definition of exactly what the ability is. We just know it can kind of, like, melt people. And we don't know if it actually works only against humans or if she can use it against robots as well. So yeah, there's a lot of unknowns going into this fight, which is probably why it might be the fight I'm most excited about. I mean, yeah, the fight against Ziggy and Shiki is cool. That's actually definitely probably the most built up fight of this entire arc or in the entire series in general. But when it comes down to it, there's so many unknown factors to the Dead End Crow versus Holly fight that I'm actually really looking forward to. And especially since they're not characters that we're actually going to be really following that much after this arc, either one of them could end up dying, and it would still be very exciting to read. And then after that, we quickly check in with Justice and LZ against Agnolia, and basically nothing's really changed that much since the last time we checked in on them. Basically, it just comes down to Agnolia finally figured out where Justice was hiding and started attacking them directly, which is leading to her attacks landing pretty close to LZ. Like, there's literally an explosion right next to her, only separated by like a small wall. So it's coming down to the point where LZ's either going to have to break free from the chains, or Justice is going to have to let her go, or she's basically going to end up dying from collateral damage. Now, obviously that's not going to end up happening. More than likely, Justice is going to let her go and they're going to team up against Agnolia. But I'm wondering what's going to actually cause him to do it. Like, is he just going to be pushed so far into a corner that he realizes the only way he has a chance of beating her is if they team up? Or is it going to be like she escapes and they decide to team up anyway? Then we quickly check in with the outer space team, and this scene is only here to kind of set up the idea that the last member of the OSG, Saint Fire Nox, is actually on the planet. But it's actually kind of weird because the only person who's aware of the fact that she's there is Cure. Not even Feder with her eye ability was actually able to determine that Saint Fire Nox was actually on the planet, but Cure was aware of it somehow. So I'm wondering how he got that knowledge. Is this setting up that Cure might be somewhat of a traitor, or that he has an inside guy on Ziggy's team? Because that's actually kind of weird that he would be the only one with that knowledge when everyone else was unaware of it. And then finally we cut in with the main crew, and basically while they're on their way to the planet's core, which it's surprising that Homura and Wise are there because they're the most beat up out of the 3 or out of 4 of them. And you would think they actually want to get back to the Eden Zero ship, but I guess considering they're going up against Dead and Crow right now, it's probably not really safe to try to make their way back there and get healed by Sister. Anyway, they're all trying to make their way to the planet's core, and basically while they're on their way there, Rebecca basically says that she wants to confirm one last time before she uses her Ether Gear ability to summon the chronophage to the planet that there's no human life on it besides them. And when Pino actually checks again, this is when she actually ends up finding out that there actually are faint life signs of humans on the planet beneath the surface. And then this is when they travel to this underground facility where we end up seeing this beautiful double page spread that Hero did of like thousands upon thousands of tubes just like piled on top of each other. And obviously inside each one of those tubes is a human. Now what we end up finding out though, which is surprising, is that we have Lady Coronai, Homura's mother, and Wise's mom inside of one of the tubes. So yeah, back when Killer and Wise were fighting and he brought that tube that has his mom inside of it out, that was actually his mom. That wasn't an illusion or a trick, that was legitimately her. And this is when Ziggy actually shows up and he basically gives them the rundown that inside each one of these tubes is actually a human mother. And that apparently human mothers actually have a special kind of ether energy that they emit. And I guess the reason why he actually has so many of them piled up in his planet is because he's actually draining that special type of ether energy out of them in order to basically find a way to get the mother. And that's not even the most surprising part of this chapter. So at the end of the chapter, he reveals that the last member of the OSG that we haven't been introduced to just yet, Saint Firenox, is also inside one of the tubes. And we end up finding out from him that apparently she is Rebecca's mom. So yeah, we're finally getting some hints or, more information on Rebecca's backstory, finding out that her mom is actually Saint Firenox, one of the OSG members. And on top of that, I've seen a lot of people theorizing after I got to reading this chapter on Reddit, at least 10 different users commenting that they think that Connor might be Firenox's husband and Rebecca's dad. Because remember back when they were at the beachside resort and he was commenting on how he had a daughter around Rebecca's age? So yeah, a lot of fans are thinking that that might have been Hero foreshadowing that Rebecca and Connor actually might be related, especially since, we did focus on Rebecca in that shot when he was talking about it. But regardless of whether or not Connor is Rebecca's dad, we know for a fact that Saint Firenox is, according to Ziggy anyway, Rebecca's mom. So we're finally getting some clear, definite answers to where she's coming from, assuming that once this arc's over, she wakes up and they actually have a time to sit down and chat. Now, that's where the chapter ends, and as surprising as that moment was, the biggest surprise to me was finding out that Ziggy knows so much about Rebecca. And this has always been something that's been on my mind, especially with that whole theory that Ziggy might be the future version of Shiki, because one of my main theories, especially after we found out that Ziggy has the ability to steal other people's ether gear abilities, was why has he never tried to take Rebecca's? Because you would think that Cat Leaper, even if he doesn't want to use the full Cat Leaper, you would think Reverse alone would be a major ability that he'd want to get his hands on. And the main argument I always has to why he probably didn't do it is because he maybe didn't know Rebecca's abilities, but if he knows about her history, if he knows where she comes from, like her parentage, that tells us that he knows a lot more about her than we originally thought. So if he does know so much about her, even ignoring the theory that he might be the future version of Shiki, him knowing so much about her personal history tells us that he has to have some kind of information on exactly what her abilities are and whatever experiment she was involved in that gave her Cat Leaper. So if he's aware of her ability, why hasn't he tried to take it? But anyway guys, that's a topic for a future video. That's it for this chapter. Thank you all for watching. Like I said, I really enjoyed this chapter. It's probably in my top 5 for this arc so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what ends up happening now that we finally have all 3 big fights set up. I'm mostly wondering what's going to happen with the Dead and Crow fight because I don't know exactly what could happen with that. There's so many variables in that fight and so many things can happen. Anyone can end up dying. Well, not anyone, but Holly or Dead and Crow or both of them could end up dying in that fight. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. The only big mystery I have when it comes to the Ziggy versus Shiki fight is whether or not the other 4 or the other 3 are going to get involved at all. But more likely it's just going to be a 1v1 against Shiki and Ziggy. But anyway, I'm looking forward to all 3 fights and seeing how they play out. That is it for the video guys. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.